Live now. I believe we're live now. Do you want to say something just to verify?
Verify. Testing.
Oh yeah.
1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's
You're
live.
you're live. Uh let me fix one last thing. Where is it? Okay. Oh my gosh. Everyone on the stream is going to see this video. What the heck is going on? Oh well, I'm not sharing my screen, so they can't really see. Anyways, enough of the cheats chats. Hold on, let me see if something is playing, okay?
Yeah, music is still playing.
Oh, okay. No. So, before I share my screen, do you maybe want to talk about what we did last?
Like what aspect of it?
Like just you are going to do the summary of everything we did the last time.
Ah, look at this lazy
How
professor.
how do I how do I know you're doing a good job or
Oh,
you're
fair,
not improving?
fair enough. That's why universities have exam that you prepare for. Not they just come to class random. Which kind of pop-up quizzes now?
For some weird reason I can hear like a feedback. Not a
Do you
feedback
have
but
the do you have the stream playing at the same time? Because you could be hearing me from Discord and from the stream as
I
well.
think that's what happened.
Yeah. So you most likely have to mute the stream.
Yeah. Oh,
But then again, the music is still going on the stream, so
yeah, I'm just going to take the volume of that low. How people make streaming look easy. I mean, it's once you get a hang of it, it's easy, but
it's easy, yeah. But getting the hang of it is
getting a
already.
hang of it is a journey. Yeah. Anyways, okay, since you don't want to share what we did the last time, I'll just
No,
share.
I can share it.
Oh,
Let
okay.
me just open.
So, what did we do?
Uh, okay, so this one was day one. So yeah, now go ahead. There's a lot for me to start covering.
Okay, just for the viewers, welcome back to day 3 of front-end development, pretty much teaching my buddy front-end development on his path to be a tech bro, and the viewers also, some of them also wanted to be a tech sis. Anyways, last week Thursday, oh my gosh, last week, if that works. Anyways, last week Thursday, we talked about, I believe, the input. We talked about comments first of all. Nah. Oh yeah, we talked about a bunch of things. We talked about linking, HTML page from, so like,
Yeah, before you go ahead,
what?
the music is still playing.
But it's low, right?
Yeah, it's low,
Yeah, I don't mind.
but like your voice is low as well. So like,
Oh,
why is my own voice like the one that is louder than?
actually, because I have your audio.
Okay, reduce my audio. Let me see.
Yeah, your audio is a lot more magnified than mine, like from the inputs directly. So I'll just cut
Yeah,
down yours.
pull it down more.
Yeah,
Then amplify yours. Did you amp it?
yeah, I did. I did.
Oh,
I just
okay.
don't
So
want it
now
to be clipping. Is that
yeah, we're
much
both on the
better?
same.
What?
Now I'm just talking to here. I get we're on the same level.
Oh, okay. I believe it's much better now, eh?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Back to our review. So last
yeah.
week, we talked about linking from one page to the other. So we created several pages. We also talked about where's the we also talked about comments. We talked about different type of inputs,
Yeah,
the different type of inputs, and the native validation provided by browsers.
that's
Talked about the form elements. We talk about button elements. We talk about the text area,
uh,
the
break.
line break elements. We also talked about horizontal line, unordered
Yeah,
and ordered list. We talked about tables. I believe we also created one somewhere. Oh yeah, this
yeah.
the
For the months and
exactly
savings.
month savings. We also did audio, video, and link tag. And
Yeah,
we I think I was introducing link while going through the design. Actually, I haven't introduced link yet. I was still going through design. Uh,
Wait, link.
CSS. That was where we stopped. So,
Yeah.
my thinking is because of how complicated CSS is,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to go briefly how to, we I gave you a description of how you write or how you style your text, right? I thought we did that somewhere.
Or the CSS
Yeah,
part of it.
we
Like
did.
you started CSS when everybody was tired.
Yeah,
So we were like, yeah, nobody's
nobody's
listening,
okay.
paying
You know
attention.
what?
So might as well start it today.
In that case, we're just going to go through it real quick. And
Mm-hmm.
over here, I have like this style tag in the head tag. Ignore it. But the first way you write, one of the original ways, or one of the ways to write CSS or to style your HTML elements, so each and every of these individual HTML, one of the way we do it is by passing the style attributes, right? And when you pass
Okay.
the style attribute, um, if we were to change the color of uh,
Well, yeah, I think we
this,
did that.
you remember that?
Yeah, we did that. That was like changing the color of
Yeah,
the text itself and then changing
changing
the
it
color of the
exactly. So
um
we
yeah.
write our CSS, what's it called, attribute, and then the color can be the different type I described the
Yeah,
last
that
time.
was what you were down doing. I forget the name of what you called it, but you were
Hexadecimal,
calculate hex. Yes, thank you.
hexadecimal.
Hexadecimal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we did that. Now I gave a description of how um, writing all of the style for this HTML element here, the H1, is, can you imagine beginning to write, okay, the font type, the font style, the size, the space between left and right, bottom, all of those things. It's just going
Mm-hmm.
to be really lengthy. So one of the ways to enable us with making that easier or having it uh, a lot more readable, right? Is we take out this style and then we inside the head tag you write a style tag. Now when you write the opening and the closing style, everything in here has to be CSS or will be CSS that you target to each and every one of these HTML elements. So how do you target each and one of all of these HTML elements? Now that's going to introduce us to what we call CSS selectors. So selectors simply meaning you are selecting an element. So it's like, okay, you want to say, oh, I want this H1 tag to be red. So what I can do is I can say H1 opening and closing bracket and ignore what autopilot is saying. So when I do this, why is it? Oh, when I do this, I can now say color should be, I'll just use this thing. Now, when I say H1, it's saying, okay, look at the H1 elements in the HTML doc, in the body of the, something is missing here. Sorry, just give me a moment. Where is the, yeah, I might have mistakenly deleted the opening body.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mistakenly deleted that. I was wondering why that is missing. So that should, yeah, okay, we're good. So when you use H1, you're saying targets all of the H1 elements in the body of this HTML and make the color red. So if we save that, don't forget your semicolon after. If we save that and we refresh the page, we see that the this is page 2 HTML element is red. So that means if we actually add another H1 element and in the document right below this is page 2 and says heading 2, what do you expect is going to happen?
So if you do what?
If we write another H1 element in the
Okay.
body of the what's it called, HTML page, what do you think is going to happen? Will the color be the default black color, or would it be this specific color we specified over here?
It should be the specific color, because from what I feel, if you, because initially we did the whole styling in each header,
Yeah,
the previous way we did it that way to only affect that one
yeah,
header. But if you do it as a reference, every time it references H1, it
exactly.
should change the color.
Exactly. And this is exactly
Okay.
what happened. That's exactly what happens when you save and refresh. So this brings another problem of, oh, okay, how do I just target one specific H1, but let the other H1s be, what's it called? Um, be red. Or, you know, how I don't want all my H1s to be red. I want the individual ones to have a specific color. This brings us to the second, what's it called? Blah blah blah, name, ID, class. Let me see, coming in based on the relationship between the pseudo selectors. So the first, we have specific, to be able to specify which elements you want your class, your CSS styling, that's your CSS definition, style definition here, should affect. We have something called uh, CSS Id Selector. Now, how do we use that? The ID is a unique value you give to each and every HTML element, and you can't repeat the same ID, right? So is unique within a page, so you can only have one type of ID. How? Let's call to, in order to define an ID to a HTML, you just do your ID attribute. It's an attribute to the HTML element, and let's call this first HTML. First heading, right?
Okay.
And this can only be used for this specific HTML element.
Okay.
I believe that's, yeah, I believe ID can, and also you should note IDs can't start with number. So now that we've given this first HTML the ID of first heading, what we can do then is we come down over here and we write another CSS statement. Just think of it as defining different CSS statement. Now, how do we tell CSS that this style we're about to write should be specific? It should only be for this specific ID. We do that using hash, and then we do ID. Oh, not ID. Hash, and then the name of the, what's it called? The ID, which is first dash heading. First dash heading. Then open and
Okay.
closing break select again. And now we can say let the color of this one be blue.
Okay. So, hmm.
Do you
So the
get it?
first color has to be there still
We can take
to
away this first
affect.
color, but when I save this
Okay.
and I refresh, you see what happens?
Yeah.
It overwrites the global selector, right? So
Okay.
this one, the ID takes what's it called, precedence, or it takes what's it called? Yeah, it takes precedence because you're being a lot more specific. So there is this thing called CSS Selector Specificity, right? Which is like, oh, which which of the how does CSS rank each of those, how do I call it? How does it rank each of those style? So H1, when you use just H1, it comes last. In the it comes last in the sense that if you've not used any other CSS selectors on those elements, it's going to apply the global selector, which is H1. But the ID comes first. You're telling it, oh, this should happen. Like this should this should be like focus on this. Like how, because it's like to avoid confliction, CSS had to be like, okay, it prioritizes this before this and it prioritizes that before that. So that's how
Okay.
we do that. And I believe when we do style like this and we do the inline style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we call this aqua. Don't forget your semicolon. You're going to see that this actually comes a lot more like this is the number one.
Okay.
But but with this being number one, right? Like this is number one, this is number two, and this is number three. Like in terms of CSS priority, CSS is going to say, okay, this is since you have this, I'm going to select this rather. But if you didn't have this and you had this and this is, oh, you know what, this is an ID, so I will select that rather. Now, in a case where we have the style inline like this, and we have the first heading and the H1, um, if you want to override this, hopefully I don't fall my hand on this, but if you want to override this, I believe you do exclamation mark important. But the moment you see this in a code base or people are using this, then you know that, oh, something is wrong somewhere. Like something wasn't planned properly. And if I do the exclamation important, it's going to CSS is going, okay, you know what? You're overriding my default behavior of ranking, and it's going to select this.
Okay.
So ignoring this. And I believe it's the same thing with this. If I take the importance to this, it's going to and delete it from here, it's going to use this. But if I have both of them, it's like, oh well, both of them is important. I'll go back to my default case, which is this,
Okay.
right? So there is that. Now, uh let's see. Another way to specify or to select an element is something we call class. Class is used a lot more than ID, and honestly, you're going to use classes a lot. So how you do that is just class, and it's the same thing where you give a specific what's it called? You give a specific ID, but with class you can give a lot of class to one specific element. So let's call this class heading 2, and I believe class you can actually use number. What meanwhile
ID.
ID you can't use number. If only I can find. Yeah, so heading 2, and if I were to do so to how do you identify with what's it called, with IDs we use a hash to specify we are targeting an ID. With class we use a dot, and we say what's the name of the class over here, heading 2. Oh my gosh, heading 2 and column, so I say column, curly bracket. That's how we specify. Now we can call this, I'm just going to use what's been color green. Sorry, 1 second, okay. Now color green, we save, and where is it? We refresh, and see it changes the color to green.
Okay.
So you have all of this. You have the global, you have the inline, you have the ID, and you have classes to be able to specify, what class it is. Or to be able to specify, the CSS definitions you're going to have within your style tag, right? Now, I want to show you something actually cool. I'll duplicate the heading 2, and I will change so heading 2, and I'll call it heading 3 actually, and heading 4. And then this is first heading. What happens if for heading 2 I do an ID of first heading? So for heading 2, we have the same high ID as the first heading. What do you think is going to happen when to show what's going to happen when I save and refresh? You see? So you can reuse like your heading. When I said you can't reuse your heading, what I meant is you can't define a,
like you can't use first heading
you can't,
anywhere else in the page where you
yeah,
don't want to refer
but you
to
can reuse it to apply styles to elements,
yeah.
right? But then here's where it gets interesting actually. ID, you can only have one ID in an element, but with class, you can have multiple class.
Okay.
So let's do this as heading 3. Let's have a heading class. I'll just call this for, actually, yeah. Let's see, first heading. Yeah, I'll just have a heading class, and this, our same thing, heading class. And actually, we can use ID and heading. We can also use ID and heading. So ID and class, right? So
Okay.
if I were to do class, I should still be able to give this first H1 element a class of heading, and I can also give this first H1 element of a class of heading. So we have 1, 2, 1, 2. They all have a class of heading. But now here's the interesting thing. For the second heading, I'll take out the ID. I am able to also tell this second heading, it should have a class of heading 2, right? And heading. You get what I'm doing here, right? So I can
No,
use
you know.
ID, and I can
Okay.
use class on a H1 element, on any element.
Okay.
But with ID, I can only give one ID. But with class, I can give multiple classes.
Okay.
And I'm also reusing the same class, right? Like the same way we did with reusing the ID initially, right? So I'm using the same class name. So heading, 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 yeah. But for this second heading, I'm giving it a heading 2. Now, why am I saying this? Let's say we define a class here, or why am I doing this? Let's say we define a class here called heading, right? And let's say we want all of our heading to have a, let me see, font style of italic. We want all our heading to be italic. And this is how you specify your, what's it called? Your text should be italic. You use the font style CSS, what's it called? So font style, italic. Now we've created this heading. We've created this heading class, and we've add it to 1, 2, 3. What do you think is going to happen to all of our 4 headings with that new addition? And remember, this one has 2 classes.
So the one with the 2 classes would, where is heading?
So this is heading.
So oh wow, that's the H1 as well. Heading 2, the H1 class with heading 2 would have both color green and italic.
Exactly. So if we refresh, we see it has color green. And so this is where, plain, like you can create classes that do specific thing. And then when you're writing your HTML, you're like, okay, if you find yourself reusing the same styles over and over again, the same group of styles, you can just, okay, you know what? I'm going to pack all of this and put them in this specific class definition. And then when I see myself using it over and over again, or if I need that specific styling, I can just, add it to the class. This is one functionality that ID doesn't have. With ID, you can only have one ID. With classes, you can have all classes. And here is where it gets interesting. Let's say I'm going to do something. Bear in mind the way you define the classes here matters, or the way you arrange the arrangement matters in terms of priority, because I could do for heading 2, I could also say heading 2 should have this, right? But then for heading, I'm like, oh, all the color of all headings should be choose something
Yellow.
for, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I'll just, hopefully that works. So now, what do you think is going to happen to this first H1 that has 2 classes? But remember, it has heading 2 class and just the normal heading class. What do you think the color of this is going to be?
Yeah, this one I don't know.
The color
Not
is
so
going
sure.
to depend on how you define your classes. So just think of it as any class you write. Where is it? Oh yeah, heading 2. Oh, actually, sorry, this is what I meant to do. Yeah, actually, yeah, this is a good point. So the color depends on how you define your classes here. So since we defined heading first, right? Since we defined heading first, we said the color was chocolate. As a result of that, everything that had heading as a class, the color is chocolate. But then we also defined heading 2 later, and we say the color is green. And only one thing had the class of heading 2. So irrespective of how you arrange it over here, it's the arrangements here that takes precedence. So if I were to move this down, what is going to happen to the color of heading 2?
Okay.
It's going to change to chocolate. Yeah. So that is one of the things that makes what's it called? Why last week a lot of people in the chat were like, "Oh, CSS is like CSS is a struggle, or CSS is," but it is. It's just it has guidelines. Like it's like, okay, which you can define multiple things, but which one takes precedence and which one is going to be my priority, that kind of thing. Now, the last way to define our styles, because we've been writing everything in this same style tag, right? We've been writing all the CSS in this same style tag. But now, can you imagine if you had a really big website and you've written all the HTML and then you have to write all the CSS? Like, by the time you write everything in this file, it's just so humongous, right?
Yeah.
So how
So
can you write your
okay.
CSS in a separate file and include it? This is
Okay, that's
where
where the reference
the link tag comes into
link.
play.
Yeah.
So, blah, blah, blah. Oh, Thought I had it open. So the link tag actually can do a lot of things. It's simply you are linking a different element or a different yeah, think of it as you're linking a different element to what's it called, to that specific HTML page. Now, for example, remember we have the style tag in the head inside the head tag. The head tag has specific things that can be in it. One of it is style, right? So I like to think of the link tag as anything that can be in the head tag, you can link it. Like instead of you writing it in the same file, you can just link it. So to write the HTML or to link the CSS from a different file, let's create, we are in page 2. Page 2 is under the pages directory. And I'm going to create index.css. I'll just call it index.css. So when I create my index.css file, everything within the style tag, just as it is, I will copy it without the style tag, post it in the index.css, and then I can take out my, what's it called, style tag. When I take it out, the only thing I have in my head, inside my head element is the title. So if I save it and refresh, it's not going to work because we haven't linked this CSS file we created to the specific page. How do we link it? We use the link tag and say link. Now, the link tag is a self-closing tag, I believe, yeah. And then we define the, what's it called? I don't know what it means. I call it relationship, but it's like you are telling it what type of relationship are you linking now, or what type of file are you linking to it. So I will say rel and style sheet. Oh my gosh, style sheet, because CSS is style cascading style sheet. So like style sheet, and then as usual href to link where the what's it called is the CSS file is. So since the CSS file is in the same directory, I could just do where is it? Index.css is in the same directory as this. And once I save it and refresh it, our styles should be reapplied back. The styles that we copied here, it should be reapplied. So now you can work on your CSS separately and keep on writing more CSS, and still have your HTML just be purely focused on the HTML structure of your document, of your page. Any question, any confusion, anything you need me to explain?
Yeah, I'm trying to, because you speed run that part,
Okay.
right? I'm trying to create the
CSS
CSS file in the distance. So it
so
was new file work. Wait, give me 1 second.
let me see.
If I
If you want me to show it to you using like the Windows File Explorer to show you the
no,
specific
I also do it from in
VS Code.
from inside VS Code.
Okay.
So new file.
Do you want me to do it?
How do you make it? Yeah, do it on your end. Let me see.
Okay,
Because
so
mine doesn't show.
when you go to page 2.html, because that's what we were working on, and then you look under, go to the pages, what's it called, directory. Click on the pages directory. It should expand and show the list of things there.
Yeah.
while selecting the pages directory, because we want the CSS file to be on the same path as the page2.html. We click on this button here, which says, or icon that says new file. It looks like a file with a
No, I'm trying to
plus.
see, because my page 2 is not, is in pages, but is in page 3 inside of, what's going on?
Oh, did you create your page 2 in page 3?
Oh, I think I see it now. Okay, okay. So yeah. So click on create file.
Yeah, the new file. Or you can right click on the folder and select new file, and then just create index.css file.
Okay. But why is it not showing the CSS logo like yours? Mine is showing a hashtag in front of the, yeah,
It's
like
the
instead of that.
theme I'm using. I believe it's the
Oh,
theme
but
I'm using.
it's supposed to show like a hashtag, like, yeah, regularly.
Um, I think it's the theme I'm using. Does yours show for the HTML file? Does it show the 5?
Oh, no, it just shows the open and
And
closing.
closing. Yeah, it's the theme I'm using. If you want different themes on what's it called, VS Code, you go to this. It's extensions, but it looks like Rubik's cube, or it looks like it's a
Yeah.
cube. And then you can search for I think I'm using material UI or something like that. Yeah, so if you look for material icon theme, I believe that's what I'm using. So material icon theme, you install it and then you set file as icon. Let me see. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually a dumbass. I did the correct thing the first time, right?
Oh,
But it didn't show that icon. It showed the hashtag. So I thought maybe
oh.
I
So
typed the
the
wrong,
wrong thing.
yeah. But I've installed it and everything looks fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So did you link it to your HTML page?
Well, yeah, now what happens if you do that at the bottom of the page? Does it have to be at the top, like where it
It
says
has to be within the head.
head? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it has to be within the head element.
Give me 1 second. Cut this and paste this. And does CSS have the same, like the doc type CSS
Mm,
lang
no,
that you?
you just start writing it.
Oh, okay, so you don't have to do like
You don't have
a
to
name.
do a doc type. No.
Okay. I see. Give me 1 sec. Let me. So my thing is like in real life, day-to-day usage of CSS,
Yeah.
you have to type like will I say in depth like this, or okay, you say you have the global
Uh
assist that helps you, or is it most of the time just
you
basically
you have to what's it called?
referencing your old?
Hmm. Yes, you have to type. Simply put, yes. Simply
Oh,
put,
okay.
yes, you have to. And the like to start explaining or to start telling you all of the CSS. What are these things called? Hold on, let me see. All of the CSS properties. Yeah. So like margin, padding, we have margin, padding, text, fonts, icon,
Mm-hmm.
Z index, position, display. We have a lot of them. And we're going to actually go through them. We're going to go through them and you will see because the next thing I want us to do is build this. the Notes app, but we are just
Okay.
building the HTML for it, right? And we're also going to create like this other page, we'll create these two pages and link them. But this one in particular has like an auto save feature and all of those things, right? We will
Okay.
do that when we get to
So
JavaScript.
JavaScript. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But we just want to write the HTML and the CSS to style all of this.
Oh, okay. Can you go to your page too so I can see the link?
Okay, yeah.
What link? Okay, style sheets, href. Yeah, cause it's very easy to forget to add certain like the closing tag,
Yeah.
and it's like this. There's one we did that I think it was the color that had the semicolon at the end.
Yeah, all of this, that's why I told you it's like experience in knowing what could cause a page to, like, experience in knowing what could cause a page to break. And also the more you do it, the more you get, what's it called, you understand it. One of the
Yeah.
things I did, because it's one thing to, learn,
Mm-hmm.
or like, usually a lot of people are saying if you don't practice, you won't get it. I found
Oh,
that my own way of learning or trying to get it is not by writing the code. A lot of the times it's like, yeah, writing the code a lot of the time works, but I tend to like focus on, I'm going to watch this tutorial, I'm going to read this blog, I just keep reading and reading and reading and reading, and then I have a different idea as to how everybody does. Like, I begin I have a different idea or different explanations or as to how, this makes sense and this makes sense. So by the time I watch like 5 different videos by different people on that specific topic, I have a
yeah.
like I have somewhat an experience to be able to, okay, you know what, I want to do this. And once I get head down and start writing, it's a lot more easier than, that first time you just watch a video and you're like, okay, let me do it.
Okay.
Anyways, so now we want to work on this Notes app, right? And it has this design, right? I
Okay.
would ask you from the look of it, what would you say is from the look of it, yeah, can you like dismantle it? Like, can you hack it and be like, okay, this is probably this element, this is probably this element, this is probably this element.
Mm, let me see. Um, can you send me the link?
I'm not sending you the link. I'm not sending you the link.
Ah, that's crazy that you would not send me the link when
Shall
I
I
can
even take
see
it
it.
away from the because
No,
I know you
cause
want to inspect it, but no. But like,
no,
it's easy to just look and, okay, this is a heading.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I can guess like generally, right?
Yeah,
So like the notes app itself would be like a header. The take notes would be like a second, like H2.
yeah,
Um, the filter notes thing would be like a text input.
yeah.
Um,
This we didn't do it, but
Now
I
that's a drop down.
yeah.
Everyone knows a drop down now, right? I assume everyone knows a drop down. But drop down is a drop down menu basically. But
Yeah, it is.
the
We didn't do what specific HTML that is, but it's just a HTML input.
okay,
And
um, that should the create node should be a button then.
exactly. And
Yeah.
like that, you begin to see how everything is just a basic
Yeah.
concept of all of this. And then the other thing is when you look at this, you're like, oh, you know what? It's actually a div or a section or a heading, and this is also another division. And this is also another division. This is, you get what I mean? And those
Yeah.
div like stack up together to create this. And inside of all those div, you have a header and all of this. Anyways, to get started, 1 second. To get started on the index.html. HTML.
Yeah. So say you wanted to um make something similar to someone's website and you went to inspect their page. Let's say you were trying to learn how CSS and HTML works, and you go to Amazon's page, like just a random Amazon page or a random
Mm-hmm.
website,
Mm-hmm.
and you open the inspect. Is it possible to copy the code from there and then paste it in like VS
Yes.
Code and
Yes.
but
Yes. I have a but because
okay,
if we go to um I'm trying to think of a good website.
just think of maybe a random Shopify
Oh,
store or
let's
something.
think of this one. No, I don't want to use cause Shopify is like server side rendered, right?
Oh,
But
okay.
some websites are client side rendered where they send you the JavaScript and the JavaScript generates the HTML.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So as a result of that, when you inspect, when you inspect and you look at, for example, the classes, you'll be like, did the developer define these classes? Just look at that. It's like GVZ, like
Yeah.
you get, and then the way it is, the way a lot of it actually, this is also a server side rendered because it has the underscore next. I know the app that does this. So it's like by the time you look at it, you'll be able to inspect and say, okay, this is this element, this is this element, this is this element. Like
Yeah.
for me, for example, this color wheel, when I inspect, I know it's a H1 and you actually see color wheel here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it is, but then when you copy everything, you want to also copy the CSS, which is over here. You can see the styles applied to it,
Mm-hmm.
right? The different styles. So sometimes it's as easy as copy and paste. Sometimes it's like, oh, you have to like try to understand, okay, they wrap this in this div, and you get what I mean? Because
Oh, okay.
they are like libraries and they are like libraries and as in libraries. I don't know how to describe library. It's just someone created this uh HTML CSS, file that when you import it, you can use certain pieces,
Yeah.
certain code from. They've already written it. And some people have even gone as far as saying, okay, give us just the name of the element you want and we'll create it for you using JavaScript. That's what pretty much what client side rendering with JavaScript. Okay. So as a result, the way you actually write the code like this might be different, but
Okay.
at the end of the day, everything still boils down to this foundation. Like this is the foundation. So for us to be able to write um to build this,
Mm-hmm.
right? We're going to create teaching my let's create because this is going to be a new app. So let's just create a new folder and we'll call it the notes app. Create it wherever you want. I'm creating mine on the desktop.
Okay.
Uh, 1 second, let me check chat if there is anything.
No, I'll be monitoring. There's
Oh,
nothing
okay.
crazy.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've created the Notes app. Now you can right click and open with code. If you right click on it, we'll want to open that folder with VS Code. So we open it with VS Code. Yes, I do. I know what I'm doing. Now we're going to use VS Code to create the files that we need, right? So the first file we need is the HTML file, right? So we'll call it index.html.
Hey, how did you access OpenWidth? I can't see OpenWidth anymore.
Sorry, you said?
1 sec. I can't see OpenWidth anymore.
Oh, if you right click on it and go to show more options, if you are using Windows 11, usually normal Windows 10, if you just right click on it, it should open. You should be able to see open with code, with VS Code, or you can open VS Code
Yeah, most
and
likely
then go
just
to file, open folder, and then go to that. In my case, it's in my desktop, and I will select the Notes app folder and just select folder.
okay. Yeah.
Create your index.html file, and then I think if I do.
Okay. Clouds, data. And then
Using
connect nodes.
Emmet, you can just generate your HTML.
Yeah.
All done.
Yeah.
Okay, now we are going to start writing the HTML for this page, right?
Okay.
And what you can do before we start is just open the folder and open the index.html file in your browser.
We already did that.
It should be empty. All good.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. So first and first is we'll change the title of the page to be Note app because we are writing a Note application. And when we save it and refresh, the title right here should be Note app, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah, Note app. Now, I will do this. I will do this just so we have it as a reference. So we have this as a reference on the bottom,
Oh, okay.
and then we can write what we want. Now, looking at the body, as we had a discussion as to okay, what each and what elements should be in each and every of this HTML page, right?
Yeah.
1 second. So we have this first section, we have this second section here, we have I will delete this for 1 second, just give me a minute. We have the no notes section, and the no notes section is also going to show, if there is notes, it's also going to show our list of notes, right? And then we have the create button. So these are individual sections, right?
Yeah.
Now we can say we have this first section, this section, and the last section. So we have 3 sections that divides our page. So in order to do that, we could either use div, but we're going to use a HTML5 element called header, right? So that's just to signify, oh, you know what? Everything that's going to be in it is part of the header, because we have the notes app and take notes and never forget, which is a header. So everything on here, we want to treat it as a header, right? Now we'll do that. And in the header, what are the things we have? We have the notes app and the take notes and never forget. This is going to be tricky to explain, because we're trying to do this at the same time explain CSS with you. So we're just breaking down this app into different sections. But you know what? Let's do the
Okay, so what is there any issue with having the header in the head section of HTML?
The head section of HTML, yeah, doesn't, it has nothing to do with the body of the HTML document. Remember, the body is where we write. The body is where we write things the user will see. The head is just a metadata for what's it called? The HTML document. So it has nothing to do with the header, the heading of the body of the HTML. So everything we see is in the body. Everything that says information about the HTML page is the header. The head. But this header, yeah, think of this header as think of it as a div. It's used to create. So actually, if I check here and I header, it it represents a container for introduction. Oh my gosh, it's like a container for where you're going to have things like your navigation.
Oh, well, yeah, it says there you could have H1 to H6.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, we're going to have that. Oh, were you talking about? I thought you were talking about this head one.
Oh wait, okay, so there is head and then there is header.
Yeah, head, yeah, is different from header. Remember, the head just talks about the document. It's just metadata for the document. In the head, we have the title tag, and that's where we give the title of the page that references what we have here.
Okay.
And then in the body,
that's confusing then.
Yeah, it's
why would they have head and header?
header. The header element is just to describe, because header element is, when you look at the websites of today, you have a section where there is the menu buttons and the navigations and things, and then they have the logo or the, what's it called? So for example, using this website, this is the header.
Okay.
This is so we have the home button, the HTML. This is the header information of the website. This is like the header, what you see, while the other head is more of just describing things about the website.
Okay, makes sense.
So we're going to be using the header HTML tag, and it's going to contain our H1, what's it called? It's going to contain our H1 element, which is the Notes app. So we're going to write Notes app. Oh my gosh. Notes app. And the next thing over there is this H2, a smaller one, right? That says take notes and never forget. H2, take notes and never forget. When we save it and we refresh this, we see this. Forget about styling for now. Let's focus on getting the structure of the HTML page. Right? So now we've gotten our header, everything that needs to be in our header, we've gotten it done. So we go to the next part.
Wait, give me 1
This.
sec before you go ahead.
Okay.
So you see how the alignment of your code is like you have the head in indented paragraph. I don't know what the name is, and then the title is on that. Do you understand what I mean? Like the format you have your code written in. Does your VS Code do that automatically, or is you that aligns it that way because it makes it like easier to read?
I did, I don't know, Control A and Control Shift P and just type format document. I think it should do it. Control Shift P or Command Shift P. 1 second. Out.
Okay.
If I let the puppy in here right now, it's just going to be catastrophic. Did he get it formatted for you?
Yeah.
So since we're done with writing our header section, we move on to the next section, which is where we have this input action. Let's call them action, actions. So we could use a div. We could use, also bear in mind, we can use a div for this header.
So what do you mean by that?
So instead of writing header, we just write div.
Okay.
Right.
Let's do that instead, because most of the times when I expect pages, I see more
Divs, yeah, the thing is with header, it's um, accessibility and it describes the page better for all of those tools. But for now, just for learning, because there is a lot more HTML elements and you can learn that yourself. But let's use div rather. So we've created our first section, right? There is also a section, what's it called? HTML elements, just FYI. Let's create a div for the next section. And this is going to house our inputs, our different type of inputs, right? So, but then, let's see. We have the input and we have this select drop down. So we can do input, right? The type over here will be text because it's a text input. And the placeholder is going to be what we have, faintly defined over here. Filter nodes. And then we close our input. Now, when we save that and refresh, we should see our filter nodes. Got it?
Yep. Just need to close. Let's see if it's saved. Yeah.
Next thing is this select drop down. there is a HTML element called select. And when we try this, we see it's for select and drop down. So we're going to use that. And to use it, all you do first is you create your select element. Open and closing. And then we'll give it a name as sort or sort by. So I gave it a name as SORT B capital and Y. So this is, and then the options. So now, since it's a select drop down, you need to give the individual options that should be, so we use the option tag to give it that. So looking at over here, looking at the example here, you can see it's exactly the same thing they did. And now the options we have here, we have 3 options. So I'm going to duplicate that. The first one is sort by last edited. Sort by last edited. The next one is sort by recently created. One second. Kenneth says your ID red.
Guy, I've been at work since the morning. I just finished work.
I can tell. So the next one is sort by recently created. So
okay.
And the last one is sort alphabetically. So sort. No, I didn't select it. Now, for each and every one of this, what's it called? Options, we need to give what the value is. Why do we need to give the value? Because when the user selects one option, it's one thing for them to visually select. It's one thing in your code to know what they select, right? So we're going to give them a unique identifier that when they select this, in your code, this is what they select, in your code. But we won't be using that feature now because we've not done JavaScript, right? So what we're going to do is we'll do value for each and every option.
Yes,
Kenneth, yes, the live streams will be present after the stream. The recordings will be present after the stream. So for each and every of this option, we give a value attribute, and the value attribute is going to be that unique identifier. So for this one, I would call it by edited, no space. The next one, the next option, I'll call it by created. And the last one by alphabet. Alphabet. And as you can see, there's no space between, So if what happens is if you have each and every one of these select select options have the same value, when the user selects the ones that have the same value, it won't be unique, so you won't know what exactly they selected. That's why we're giving them a unique. But anyways, once we save that and we open our browser, we should see the select option right beside it with,
yeah,
and the user can be able to select each and every one of them. Anyways, that is done. So we are done with this whole section. The next section is we have to create another section for the create note and the notes content, right? So
Okay.
two things, right? I could decide to, oh, you know what, the notes content should be one section and the create note button should be another section. It all depends on you. You can decide, oh, you know what, I want all of this whole section, all of this whole content, they should be under one section. And then when you are styling it, you just have to specify how that style is going to look like. But for simplicity, I'm going to say, okay, this no notes to show, or in a case where there is a note, where there is a content, I'll say this is one section and this is another section, right? So
Mm-hmm.
to do that, we create another div and we can call this, so since it's empty for now, let's delete this, remove this, no notes to show. Let's just have a p tag in it that says no notes to show. And the last section can be our button. The last section will have our button. All done? All, are you all caught up?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if we refresh, we should have everything as it is, right?
Yeah.
Okay, now, um, before we proceed, this, when we click on it, if I were to click on it, and oh my gosh, if I were to click on it, it opens a new file, right? It opens a new file, and that new file, like it goes to a new page rather. That's what I meant. So we could either make this a link or we could make it a button. For simplicity's sake, we're going to make it a button. A link is an external resource. But since this is going to be like within the same application, let's just make it, a button. Anyways, we've made it a button. The next thing we're going to do is style this. But before we style this, oh, you know what? Hold on 1 second. Actually, let's make this. Because with the button, when we click on it, we want it to open the, what's it called? We want it to open this form, right?
Mm-hmm. Wait, when you click
On the button. So the
create a new
create
node.
notes button, we want it to open this form, which is a page we're going to create ourselves,
Okay.
right? So we need to create this page by ourselves. Yeah, we need to create this
Oh,
page.
okay. So, oh, wow. So when you clicked on the um create node button,
It opens a new
it
page.
opens a new page. Okay.
And you see the second section is different from the content
Yeah.
of the page.
So I must have to make a page two.
Yeah, but we need to be able to link from page one to page two. So let's
Page
make
two
this button, this a, instead of making it a,
button.
yeah, a button, let's make it a link. Later we are going to change it to a button, and I'll show you why, or you have a better understanding of why. So href, so we'll make it an anchor tag, and the href is going to be linked to a, um edit. We'll call this edit page.html or something like that. So we need to create our edit.html page, right? So edit.html. And when we generate our HTML stuff, we're still going to call this the title of the page. We're still going to call it notes app, and then maybe we can do dash notes app dash edit page, or create edit page. Honestly, we'll just call it edit page. I'm going to format the document because got it. And we're going to link our index.html homepage to the edit page using the href attributes. So just slash index.html dot slash index.html as we learned. Now, if we refresh the index.html page, it should change the button from a button to a link that has create note, right?
Give me 1 sec. I think what am I missing?
Do you have the
Okay, yep. Let's see what I'm missing.
and that's how you learn. The more mistakes you make, you're like, oh yeah, this is needed. Oh yeah, and then you're just getting, the understanding of how everything works.
Give me 1 sec. Something is not adding up.
What is not adding up?
I don't know if I missed. Okay, why is it not?
I can barely hear you.
Okay. Nah, cause I'm lamenting. I'm trying to figure out what I'm missing in my. Did I switch something?
I want us to get like the style done today, just the style. That's going to, or some part of the style for page one done.
Okay, so here's. My create notes. Something is going on.
The create
So
notes button.
I removed the button
Yeah.
and I created the href, right? But for some reason it still shows the button on my
Did you save
live
and
chat.
refresh?
Yeah, I've even closed the. Let me open a whole new browser, open a live server. Yeah, like it shows it for a second, and when I click on it, it switches back to the button. Let me try renaming it and see if that fixes it. You know what? Just go ahead. I'll try and be fixing it on my end.
Trust me,
Yeah.
where we are going to is going to complicate more things.
Is it because I used div? Okay, that's opening div, closing div, feature. What am I doing wrong?
Should
I
I?
don't think I'm doing anything wrong.
So you have your opening body, you have opening and closing body tags. For the button, you have the opening and closing div,
Yeah.
and then inside it you have
Href.
yeah.
Yep,
Anchor
exactly.
href in quotes,
Yeah,
create
create
nodes,
notes.
closing
Yeah, like
anchor.
that's what I'm saying. It's when I share it, it shows the correct.
Are you using live server?
Yeah.
Do you want to just open the file directly in what's it called?
Okay, let me try that. Let's see. Yeah, same thing happened.
Same thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, just it's okay.
Copy and paste the HTML on Discord. Let me see.
Wait, hold on. I think maybe I see what it is. Let me delete. I swear if this is the problem. I'm actually an idiot. I
I
am an
didn't.
idiot.
I didn't say it.
No, you didn't have to say I'm the dumbass.
What happened?
So I did the right thing the whole time, right?
Yeah.
I opened with live server, but originally I had copied exactly the same code from the um index.html page into the edit page, right?
Oh, and you were looking at the
So when I
edits page,
click, so when I clicked on the href for the index.html, it took me to the edit page
and it's showing you the edits page.
and it showed me the edit page, but I did not realize I was on the edit page
Edit
because I did
page.
not look at the URL.
Yeah. Update the title of the page so that it's easier for you to know. Oh, okay. Like now I'm in the main page, and when I click on
Yeah,
create, it takes me to the edit page, and I know I'm on the edit page.
edit
The
page. Yeah,
edit page is going to be a little bit different. Section wise, we have the same amount of sections pretty much. We have the header section, we have this section, we have the notes, we have the form and the button. And the form and the button is all going to be, tied together. The home link is going to take us back to the home page. So we need to add all of those uh, we need to add all of those to
yeah.
the document.
Okay.
So creating the header page, I don't want to copy and paste because I want the viewers to have what's it called? Div. I'm just going to create the header section over here, and that's going to have our h1 and our h2 for the same h1 and h2. So I'm just going to write that h1 and h2, and the h1 is just notes app, and in the h2 we have take notes and never forget. Now we're done with the header section. The next section we have, we're going to create another div. Oh my gosh. And that should have the anchor tag link back to home. So we can just call this home and then do that right now, actually, href, and that is going back to index.html. And the last one is going to be, oh, the last one, this is just a paragraph. It's just a text. So we're going to use the paragraph tag. And actually, that's not a paragraph. Let's use a HTML element called span. So span is like paragraph, but it's just a blank. It's, I don't know how to describe it. Span is, it's like a span element is used to color a part of a text. So you can actually have a paragraph, and then in the paragraph you have a span element. So
Okay.
it's like you're just using it to specify, oh, you know what, creating a section between a paragraph. but you can also use it as a paragraph. It doesn't behave like a paragraph, unfortunately, because a paragraph is a block level element. So as a result, it creates a new line, but a span doesn't. But anyways, over here we can just have edited few seconds ago, and when we now that's all done. Now we have the form aspect, which is the next section. In the next section, we have the form. So I'm just going to create that. And the form has a button called remove node. So when we look at the form, we have this input element, and we have also this text area element, and we have the button. So I'm just going to do that. So I'll create a I'll create a form. Just go with it. And we have the input element for with a type of text and a placeholder of note title. Now the next thing we have is oh, I wrote that there, is the text area, because with the input type of text, it's different from the text area because we want to be able to write a lot more stuff here, right? So we're going to define our text area HTML element, opening and closing tag, and then text area, we're just going to give it a placeholder of enter note text like we have here. And the last thing we do need is our button. I'm just going to enter here. It's our button. And then the button is going to say remove note, and we'll save it. Now, once we save it and refresh our page, we should see everything looking like this. That tells us, you know, things are working. We've not applied our CSS, our styling. And if we click on our home, it should take us back to the home index.html. And if we click on create note, it should take us to the form where we create a note, right? All caught up?
Yep.
Awesome. Next thing we're going to do is styling. And to style, if you recall, I told you how to link an external style sheet. I taught you how to link an external style sheet, CSS style sheet. So let's just create a new file in the same directory. We are not going to be doing subdirectories right now. We just want everything to be as simple as possible. So say index.css, we'll create the index.css file, and then we come into our head tag and we do link, use the link tag, and we say the relationship is style sheet, and the href is index.css because it's on the same in the same directory. And close our link tag. So now if I were to say h1, if I were to say, if we were to write a CSS of h1, a global for all h1, and say the text color should be aqua, just to make sure we've linked this CSS file to the HTML tag, we see that, yeah, that same CSS, the CSS is applied. Then we are 100% certain that it has been linked. Actually, I think I even have a better idea. I was going to name this style.css, but you know what, let's just call it index.css. Now let's start styling things. We can delete the h1 style that we applied. And before we can start styling, what we need to do is we need to give each and every, or we give each and every one of this section and elements, you know, an ID so that we can target them with our styles, right? So the first thing I'm gonna do is looking
Hold
at
on one
this.
sec, cause um the link, you have to link it on both pages, right?
Oh yeah, you have to link it on both pages. So actually, yeah, I can go to edit the HTML and add that same link there.
Okay, but okay. Oh yeah, okay,
Okay.
it works now. Oh, okay, makes sense. Yeah, because it was not working on my second page, so I thought I was doing something
Oh,
wrong.
okay. Yeah. Anyways, we've deleted our initial, you know, style. But looking at this div or this section, the top, the heading section, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is where the battle begins. Now, oh my, oh my, oh my. I don't know how to explain this in such a way that you get it. But something I forgot to actually tell you is you could apply style to even the HTML document and the body tag. So the way we were able to do H1 and
Okay.
say all H1, we can say, you know what? We want our HTML document to have a specific style. So if I were to do that and I say something like background color should be red, I believe that should change. That changes all of our background color to be red.
Okay.
So because I'm saying it should apply this style to the HTML document. So everything in the like the HTML document on its own is going to be red. So if I were to also say something like color should be blue. Now remember, color, using the word color refers to text, anything text. The expectation, or what do you think is going to happen since I'm using the color in the HTML um, selector?
Mm, every text inside the HTML would be that color. Yep.
Exactly, exactly. So be careful with when you use things like this. And this is the same thing as we can also create another CSS for the body. We can also do the same thing for the body. And when you look at the body encompasses everything in the, you know, HTML doc. So the HTML tag encompasses the body. So as a result, the styles were applied to everything in the body. Now, if we do the same thing for the body and we say, let's take out the red color from the HTML tag and we say we're applying it to the background color. When we do that and save, there will be no changes. In short, we could change the color to blue, save, and we see that it changes the color of the whole of the HTML body to be blue.
Okay.
So now knowing this is good because then we are going to do some magic here and there. But before we start doing that, we have this initial header, right? That has this initial div, which has the two headers. And we see that, okay, what's the size of this div? Let's say it's about, 1 second. Header.
Are you measuring it?
Oh, I have some styles written down here already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, when we, to give, let's call this, why don't we give this an ID or a class? I'll give it an ID, right? And we can call this, the header dash container, or I can call it header section. I'm calling it header section because it has everything around the header, right? Now, how do we reference IDs in our HTML? Again, we use the pound or the hash, and then we say header section. Now, what color is this? The color I would post in the chat, or oh my gosh, sorry, knee throat. I will post it in the chat. That's the color of the header, but this is the background color. So we'll say the background color is this. Oh, hash that. That's the first thing we want to, because this is the whole header section. So when we do that and we refresh, we see this. Now, when you look at this, you might wonder, why like this div section, why is there space to the top and there's space to the left? This is as a result of, so when we go to the header section, this is as a result of the browser. Oh man, this is so, there is something called box sizing in CSS, right? And the default box sizing is, oh, everything, the browser is going to create this margin on the edges of the browser, right? So now, in order to take this out, in order to take this top, what's it called, thingy away, what we can do is we can say we don't want, in our HTML, we say there should be no margin and there should be no padding. So we'll say padding 0 and margin 0. These are all CSS properties. Padding refers to, let me see. Oh, actually, I can just use the Chrome DevTools to show you. Oh, that's even not going to work. Hold on. Yeah, that one is going to work. This is not going to work. What if I do this? Yeah. So, actually, 1 second. I want to try something. Yeah, that's not going to work. So if we do the margin 0 and padding 0, it's not going to work. But what we can do is we can say, you know what, apply it to everything. And how do we do that? We do that using oh my gosh, using star, and then we write that the margin and padding 0. When we do that and refresh, we see that it takes away all the margin and the padding. So as a result of that, we can just delete the margin and padding for this and then use it. Does that explain? Like, I know I just breezed through it because.
So the star at the beginning, what does it indicate?
So the star is saying apply all of this to everything in the page. So if I came here and I did color red, it's going to apply, it's the same thing, it's going to apply to everything in the page, every single thing. So you can even see our sort by, it's like it's applying it over there. But now we are saying, okay, everything in the page should have by default should have a margin of 0 and a padding of 0. So since we did that, it took away the margin of 0 and the padding that the browser injects. Now, what's the difference between margin and padding? Let me show you. So for example, if you look at this diagram over here, right? This is what's it called? bruh, even this diagram it is quite okay. For example, this box over here, right? Think of it as whatever element, border, div, p tag, heading tag, and everything, right? CSX box. Uh, like everyone uses this, but I feel like there is an issue because, okay, yeah. So let's start with the. Oh, sorry. I for some weird reason I don't think those ones describe things perfectly. Oh my gosh. I just want a freehand draw. Okay. Okay. So think of this as every element. So H1, P tag, everything, right? Now, if you are using a H1, it has everything is by box. Everything is a box pretty much. If everything is just a box. So as the result of that, this is it. And then the contents will be inside the box, right? That's where the content is. So if you say um, margin of, it shouldn't have a margin, right? The spacing, if you say it shouldn't have a margin on the right, that means if there are two boxes here, there should be no margin on the right. For this, if you say this box shouldn't have a margin on the right, there should be no margin. So there should be no space between this box and this box. But now we have something called padding, right? Padding is, if you look at the element, right? It has its content. So let's say the content is a text, right? And this is where the content is. But the full size of the text is this box. The full size of the element is this box. Now, padding is, there should be a space between this point here to where you want the space to be internal and not external. So if I say there is a margin between this and this, it's external, but padding is internal. So you're saying there shouldn't be an internal space in that content. Does that explain it? Then my border is just, oh, that content should have a border around its distance.
Okay.
Right. So now we are saying margin 0 and padding 0. The reason we are saying that is if the document has a padding, a spacing between its contents, we don't want it to be there. We want to manually define the spacing around its box. So now for the header section, we do have a padding, or you can see, yeah, actually we do have a padding because when we look at the HTML, we have the header section, which is this, but then there is space around it at the top and at the bottom. That is what we call padding. This is its content, but there is space at the bottom and at the top, which is equivalent to each other. So we can say, oh, okay, this header section should have a padding of, I don't know, we'll just go by numbers. We'll just go, and everything is measured by pixels. So if you say, oh, let's say 20, so padding dash top, the top side should give it space of 20 pixels, and then padding dash bottom should also do the same thing of 20 pixels. Oh, when we do that and we refresh, we see that it gives it space in between. If I were to change this to margin, just to give you an idea, oh my gosh. If I change this to margin, right? Margin top and margin bottom. Where do you think the space is going to be? That 20 pixels of space is going to be.
I want to say on this side.
It's
Sure.
top and bottom. So it's going to be on the top. So if I give it like see this, and I'll copy this and open. This is padding and this is margin.
Oh, okay.
So margin is the outside of the contents, padding
Okay.
is the inside and expanding the, the width and the height of the content. So if there is like, oh, something is 200 pixel size, but it has a padding of 24 pixels on all corners. If something is 200 pixels height, but it has a padding of 24 pixels on the top and on the bottom, 20 pixels on the top and on the bottom. So 20 pixels on the top, 20 pixels on the bottom, 40 plus the 200 is going to give you the overall size, because it's just expanding the internal, what's it called? So for this specific case, we are going to be using padding, because when we look at what we are trying to mimic here, it has a padding on the top and on the bottom. It's not outside of the whole section. Oh yeah, it's working. Now, now the next thing we want to do is the color of the text in it is white. So we can just, say that color of the text, we can just say, okay, color should be #FFF, which signifies white. We could do FFF or FFFFF 6 times, but I'm just going to do the shorthand format. When I do it, right, it is going to apply to the H1 and H2 elements, because the H1 and H2 elements is under or is inside the div, the header section. Does that explain things? Any question before I move?
Not so far.
Not so far. Okay, good. Now, there is a shorthand format for doing the padding top and padding bottom, because now we had to write padding top 20 pixels, padding bottom 20 pixels, but they are the same thing. Now, the shorthand format is just writing padding, right? And if I do 20 pixels, comma, 0, and semicolon, and save. And if we refresh our page, we shouldn't see any different. Oh, sorry. No comma. There shouldn't be a comma. Just 20 pixels, space, 0, and refresh. We shouldn't see a difference, or the padding should still be applied to the top and bottom. Now, what does this mean? When you see someone doing something like padding or margin, where it's just only 2 digits, 20 pixels and 0, it means the first number means top and bottom, and the second number means left and right.
Okay.
Right? You could also do it for where it's like 0, 0, 20 pixels, 0, 20 pixels, 0. Now, what does this mean? It starts clockwise. So from the top first, 20 pixels, the right 0, the bottom 20 pixels, and the left 0. So it goes clockwise. So that's the same thing with margin. So instead of you having to write padding top, padding bottom, and you're writing all of them, you could use this shorthand format to define all of the padding. Or if it's just the same thing for everything, you just this other shorter hand format. The only case where you're going to write padding top, padding bottom, all of that is when all the individual numbers are like different. And you say, oh, okay, I can't use the shorthand format to define, So anyways, when we do this, that works perfectly. Now, when we look at this, just give me a second. Something I am beginning to realize is if we go home and we look at the nodes, everything is all aligned in the same direction. Everything is, for the app that's already done, everything is all aligned in the same direction. So that means, what that tells me is we need a way to be able to, you know, tell everything to be, oh, okay, start from this point and start from that point. So just give me a second, let me think. Give me a second, let me think. Header, container. I would do, I doubt if this will work on margin. 0 order. Don't forget your semicolons, people. Okay, this wouldn't work. Now we want everything to be aligned here. That's going to be very tricky. We're going to ignore what's it called? Oh yeah. This is, in a way, it's responsive in the sense that if you view this on a mobile site, like it looks well aligned. But let's ignore that, right? Because that's a whole topic on its own, and let's just focus on getting this looking like this on a desktop. So when we look, oh, there is a space from year to year, and there is also another space from year to year, and they are equal, right? So the, let's say this space from year to year is a margin, and this space from year to year is also another margin. This is so difficult to explain. This is so difficult to explain. I just don't want to go ahead and do it. I'm like, oh, we give it a this, we give it a that. I want to explain it like so good. But the space for this, because the notes and the take notes is inside the div, so the space, we could either use a padding for this. Yeah, we could either give it a padding left and padding right to shift it here, or we could give the notes app, the text, a margin. So what I'll do is I'll give it a padding. So for the left and right, let's say padding is also something like 40 pixels. Oh yeah, it just moves it here, but we want it somewhere here. So I would say, what does this stand for? Hold on, let me see something. Let's do 80 pixels and see how. Oh wow, yo, that's going to take us a while. But you know what? Actually, I'll make it to be on the center of the page. It's always going to be on the center of the page. In order to do that, we have something called Flexbox, the Flexbox model for CSS. So the Flexbox model is just, okay, the parent elements, which is this, will have a type of display flex. Now, when we do display flex, it's going to say, okay, everything in it should go below it. Like each of this individual child should go below it. Should go below it. So when we do that and we refresh, we shouldn't. Yeah, we want it to go below it. So in order to make it go below it, we'll say, oh, the flex direction. Oh my gosh. Flex direction is in, is it row or column? I don't, this thing confuses me sometimes because oh yeah, colon. So colon is going to bring it back. We're saying, okay, it should be below it. If we make it row, it's going to make all of the child go to the side. So every child we go to the side, but we want it to be colon. So we want it to be below. Now we can say, to center it, we say justify your contents to be center. And that's going to take the height of the item. And okay, it's going to take the height of the parent, and it's like saying let every child be in the center, looking vertically. You should vertically center it, and then we want it to align the childs. So we'll say align items also, it should be center. So when we do this, it's going to bring it to the center. Now, this is a lot. This is a whole topic on its own. This is a whole topic on its own.
Which one? What you just did?
Yeah, CSS Flexbox. It's
Okay.
CSS is really so, you know, it is something to explain for sure. I feel there's a better way to actually achieve this, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. But to briefly explain CSS Flexbox, I don't know if I want to use it honestly, because if you look, it changed how our notes, like it changed the orientation. So I could do something like fonts, is font style, no, not font style, text align center, no, left. If I do text align left, oh, it doesn't. Interesting. Hold on a second, let me.
Okay.
I have the header. So the header has no margin. And then, oh, I see. You're going to delete everything. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Everything
So
where?
the display flex and flex direction and justify content. Because what we want is, you're just only going to leave the background color, the padding, and the color. You'll leave that. When we do that and refresh, it should come back to the way it is, right? But this div, this is a placeholder for the background color, right? Now we want the notes app and the take notes should always be in the middle, right? It should be in the middle like this. In a way, it should always be in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'll actually have it in another div inside the initial div, like this. when we do that, let's give this class of, we'll call this the header dash container. And then we come to our CSS and target the header container. Now, in order to say, okay, because when we look at this, it is always going to be centered in the middle. And then it has a breaking point and it's like, oh, okay, that's my max. That's the max place I can go, right? We're going to say what's it called? Margin. This is, I never understood why this is a case, or why I never knew why it works, but it just works. We'll say the margin should be 0 and auto. Now when we save it and refresh, it is not doing as I have instructed. Header container. My gosh. Oh, yeah. 0 auto. And if I did this, yeah, that wouldn't work. So we'll say the margin should be 0 auto. Let's say, okay, the margin should, like, the margin should be 0 auto, but then we need to restrict the width so that when we are reducing it, it's not going to go B. Like, it's always going to obey that, oh, the width should not be more than this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we say, oh, max, the maximum width should be, let's see, say the maximum width for this container should be 1,000 pixels. When we do that and we refresh, it's going to give it this space here, but it's going to make it align in this specific, like it's going to always be here. And then as we reduce the size, you see what happens.
Yeah.
Done and dusted. That wasn't dusted.
Oh.
That wasn't dusted. The other thing is, let's just style this H1 and H2, because the H1 and H2, they're almost the same size, right? So in order to do that, we can either decide, oh, to give this H1 and H2 a class and do it and write it, or we could say, oh, the heading container, right?
Mm-hmm.
And H1s. So when you do this, you're saying all H1s in the heading container. I believe that's what it means. Let me see. I just want to make sure. Uh, yeah, I think when you do this, you're saying all H1s in the heading container. So if I were to say color should be red, just to make sure this is only affecting the H1 in the header container. So this H1 that's in the class of header container, it's inside it. And if I refresh, yeah, that's only going to target this H1. So if I had another H1, if I had another H1 that is outside of this header container, let's say this, I'm just going to do this. You're going to see the color isn't applied to it. The color isn't applied to it,
No, okay.
right? So all we're doing is header. We are saying, okay, anything, any H1 that's inside a class of header container, apply this color to it. So for this specific one, we're going to say it should have a margin bottom so that there is enough space between it and the take notes forget. So to do that, take notes and never forget, we'll just say margin bottom should be, let's say 20 pixels, and see what that looks like when I refresh. Oh yeah, that's too much. Let's do 10 and see. 5 maybe, or 6 pixels. Uh, okay, and then it's a little bit too big, so we'll reduce the size, but the font size, by doing fonts dash size, and we can give it a number in pixels. So say let's say 50 pixels. Oh, that's too much. 30. uh, 30 or 35 pixels. Okay, yeah, I think I prefer it that way. The next one is uh, we want the H2 to be a lot more smaller. So we do the same thing and we just change it to H2. Instead of header container H1, we're targeting all H2 in the header container. And this time around, we don't want a margin bottom for that. We don't want, like, the padding of the header section already gives it space below it. So all we just want to do is reduce the size. And I think we can just easily reduce the size to like say 16 pixels. 16 pixels. But then we see it has bold as the H1 and we don't want it to be bold. So we say font, there is a property called font weight, and it goes from 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, depending on the type of font it's using. And 900, 100 being the smallest and 900 being bigger. Then it also takes in like bolder, bold, lighter. So we're just going to use something like 200, or I could, and when we do it, you see that it's no longer has it's no longer as bold as it is. Actually 300 maybe. Yeah, this is so much better. So you can actually play with all of these numbers and get things going. Uh yo, today I've just been so tired and weak.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you have any questions though? Like, if you have any questions, maybe I can explain questions directly versus, trying to guide
No,
this.
no. We've entered the, if I would say, the hot side of the coding. Not the
Yeah,
hot, but like the part that this thing. What can happen? Cause like I've reached the point of what's that word? When your brain
it's like,
saturation.
yeah,
So what will happen is since I already have this styling and stuff,
we
we'll
can
just end for here for today.
yeah, we can continue this, what's it called,
Continue this
on Thursday.
on Thursday, yeah.
FYI, I changed this from 1000 to 600 because 1000 was too big. So I made it smaller, and since I made it smaller, it applied more margin to it and pushed it. Yeah, so let's make it 600. And let's see, 3.2. I'll make this maybe 30. No, 35 is okay. Oh yeah. Does that, if you have any questions, just let me know, G. And then maybe next week we'll recap this. Oh, sorry, Thursday we'll recap this, and then incrementally we'll go through it, because there is a lot of things that I know I'm not explaining yet, like a lot, and I'm just like going through. Like instead of using pixels, we can use percentage. We can do things in percentage. We also have something called REM. That's also the issue with CSS is there is the old way of doing, no, like there is the old way of doing things that's still being used today, and there are like newer ways of doing things that's still being released, but not all browsers support it. So there is a mix and match of, you know, using both ways pretty much. So as a result, like I did the display flex thing. It was just recently released, like 2014 thereabout. Before, in order to align or make things center, we had to use this margin auto. But yeah, if you have any questions, just
No, not right now.
okay now.
Yeah. So just call it
We'll call it a date.
for today.
Yeah,
Let's see
we
if
should
there's
go
anyone.
rest. It's been a long day.
Yo, I've been up since
It's been a really long day.
yeah. But yeah, I think there's one person else in here, two people. Thank you guys for tuning in again
Thank you so
today.
much.
You yeah, it's true. Where do you have the? Because I remember saying like, although we started a new file today, so that's even a different this thing altogether.
Oh, the
Like having the
for
live code for those who might be previewing the videos,
yeah.
where they can access the
Let me
files as well.
just 1 second. Let me back up. Once I back this up, then I'll be able to. I will add the link to this page. I will add the link right here. I'll add it right here. Oh, I just realized I wasn't sharing my screen. So when I said I'll add it to this page, it did not make
Oh,
any sense.
add it to okay. Like you are pointing at the
Yeah, I'll add it to the Notion doc. So let me just I will teach you this because this is what we use at work to like back up our code, and it's called Git. Oh, which you know about it. So the repo is also hosted online on GitHub. So let's see. If I do p, oh my gosh, p. Oh my gosh, this thing is. I don't want to go through this right now. It's been a long day for me, but I will back this up and just add the GitHub link to the Notion doc for everyone who needs it. Any question?
nope, not from me.
Okay, thank you so much.
Checking the chat. I don't see any questions.
Yeah, thank you so much
So
for everyone in the chat and anyone who joined us today. Uh, see you Thursday, 6 p.m. CST. Bye.
bye.